Welcome everyone. My name is Julie. I'm the head of marketing at Beck Technology, and I am excited to have Josh Walker taking us through a walkthrough of DESTINI Estimator and talking about some of the updates that we've made to the platform. So if you've seen DESTINI Estimator before, you're probably going to see some things that are new in the platform. And if you've never seen it before, he's going to walk you through and talk to you about it. So Josh, I'm going to hand it over to you and let's get started.
Wonderful. Everyone, thank you for joining us this afternoon. So just like Julie said, we'll walk through a project from start to finish at a high level. And then with anytime we have remaining at the end, we'll be sure to answer questions. So if you haven't seen the product before, this is DESTINI Estimator's home screen. So where we're going to start our time together today is from a template. Templates are things that would be developed during an implementation, and they're going to allow us to have a consistent starting place. As we think of templates, you can have multiple templates inside of a database. So if you had multiple market sectors, if you had multifamily, higher education, medical buildings, those types of things, you could have a different starting place for each one of those projects. So where we're going to spend our time together today, so we're going to start at our estimate view. So this particular template doesn't start with any line items in it, but we can have line items start, and we'll talk about that here when we get to Takeoff in just a moment. Two quick things, and we'll jump right into the program. So we are a multi-user environment. You can have as many users in one estimate at one time as you would like, and they could all be doing the same activity. For example, we could all be doing Takeoff on the same page. The program will keep track of which user did what activity. The second thing is, everything from our project tab down to our Takeoff tab at the bottom can be on its own monitor. So I'm going to keep it on one monitor for our time together today. But once we get to Takeoff, we'll talk where we see our client heavily use that functionality. So where we're going to start our time together today. So we're going to start with our project tab. So the project tab is one of two Excel integrations that we have inside of the program. So the goal of the project tab is to make your historical data as easy to consume as possible and as powerful as possible. So here in just a moment, we're going to navigate to one of the two Power BI dashboards that comes with a subscription to Estimator. We'll be able to filter by different project types. So it's the information that we filled on this screen that allows those filters to function. So as we're starting off our project, we can select this is a commercial project. We can go down and select from our list of projects. We'll say, for example, today, this is a multi-use building. This will allow us, we think of our cost history, to easily find all of our commercial projects, and within our commercial projects, find those multi-use buildings. The second goal of our project tab is to capture key metrics about those projects. So whether it's as simple as what we have here, to where we have total building area, we have a total site area. Things that also we see, clients commonly track would be keys, could be net rentable square footage, number of units, those types of parameters, and they'll allow us to do two things. They'll allow us to see cost per item, cost per key, cost per net rentable square foot. They'll also allow us to filter down within the project types that we created up above. So as we're saving our estimates, that save writes back to a database, and then our Power BI dashboard runs against that database. So this is one of two Power BI dashboards that we will provide you with. So this is a published Power BI dashboard. We are outside of the program. It is a website available for us to access. So as we look at this dashboard, we have 9 projects in our sample data set, just over $317 million worth of revenue, and just over 1.6 million gross square feet. As we look at our building types, where we have office, hospitality, and garage, those would have been values in the dropdown that we just left on the project tab. So as we make a selection, so for example, we click on office, it's going to update to just show us the stats for our office projects. Same thing on our hospitality. As we move down, we'll look at our summary details. So we'll see all our projects up at the top. We'll have the ability to filter those here in just a moment. As we look over on the left-hand side, these are our WBS properties. So it's a work breakdown structure. It is a column of data if we were to think of Excel. Here we'll have the ability to select on a different, so master format will be the 48 division. As we select on that, those estimates will reorder themselves that way. So we can have as many WBS properties as we need. As we start to filter, just like we did on our summary page, if we select office projects, we go from 9 projects to 5. And if we go in and say we just want to see things 200,000 square feet or smaller, now we've gone from our 5 office projects to the 3 projects that are of similar size and scope to what we're working on. As we're looking across our divisions, as we're looking at division 8, you can see we go from $28 a square foot up to 63. We average out right about 50. So if we want to investigate, which package in division 8 is causing that large spread, we can select a more detailed breakdown and then see here, it's really our glazed assemblies in our curtain wall. We're from $21 up to $58 a square foot. Then we'll have our properties details. So this will allow us to select one or multiple of our key metrics from that project tab. And then as we've made those selections, we'll see the name of the property we've selected over on the left, along with its quantity and unit cost. And we'll see our average quantity and average cost for each one of those down at the bottom. Our final tab will be our comparison tab. So we'll have our total cost comparison for each one of our projects, total cost per a selected key metric. Then visually, we'll be able to see those by any WBS property that we choose to. So one of the benefits to being an integrated system, as we're working on our estimates, this information is being captured, no extra steps to move estimates to cost history. So as we head back into the estimate, we're gonna head back to our estimate view, and now we're gonna move into 2D takeoff and go over a couple different ways that that can be accomplished. So to do that, we're gonna introduce 2 new windows. Window number 1 will be our cost database. So that's going to be the menu of options that we can select and bring into our estimate. We'll have individual line items, or a single cost item will be a line item, and then we'll also have groups of line items, which we will call an assembly. Then down at the bottom, we're going to have our cost information view. So the cost information view will show us all the information that our database knows about a particular line item that we click on. For example, if we click on acoustical ceiling, we'll see its item number, we'll see its description. Our sample database doesn't have any unit costs, so we'll give it unit cost for today, but it would come in with your unit cost information. As we look over on the left-hand side, CSI, master format, unit format, those are all WBS properties that these line items know about themselves. So that's what powered our cost history. Normally, these types of properties are coming from our database. They're not changing estimate to estimate, or they're changing very infrequently. As we look at our first property, it's highlighted in blue, system. System is an example of an estimate-specific WBS property. So you can have as many of these as you need. So we could have a building, phase, floor, all those types of breakdowns. So as we go through, system, for example, today will be our estimate-specific breakdown. So now where we're going to head is we're going to head into our takeoff. So as we go to load in takeoff, what we'll do is we'll select load, we'll load in a PDF. As we bring that PDF in, we'll go over a couple different ways that we can do takeoff inside of the system. So as we brought in our PDF, this is one of those places where we see the majority, if not all, of our clients start to run multiple monitors. So as we go through our time together today, remember that takeoff could be on its own screen. We have a full screen devoted to takeoff so we can have as much screen real estate as possible. Our first step is to give our page a scale. And then also, if we have vectors, we can use those as well, so we can snap to lines. So as we think of the ways that we can do takeoff inside of the program, way number 1, if we have a line item already in our estimates, whether we have added that manually, as we've done in our time together this afternoon, or if that line item had been provided by our template. we can select on that line item. There's also a keyboard shortcut. And when we do that, the program is going to put us into Takeoff Command. When I say Takeoff Command, I'm talking things in terms of area, length, and count. And the program will automatically put us in one of those based off the unit of measure of our line item. So now that line that highlights blue is a vector. So as we go through and click on it, it's going to take off the extent of our line. So as we click on that, it's going to take off our full extent of that line. We can tell the program whether we want it to look aggressively or less aggressively for those by moving our slide bar up at the top right. As we close that takeoff, we now have 268 square feet. So that's the square footage that we've taken off. And that's now updated the quantity of our line item. So the majority of the time when we're doing takeoff, we're going to be doing takeoff with a singular item or a group of line items in an assembly, and they're going to be feeding back into the quantities of our line items. But we'll also, probably won't touch on it today, but there is the ability to perform takeoff and not have it instantly be tied to the estimate. If we click back on that line item, we can continue to do takeoff with it. So as we do that, it's going to continue to add to the quantity of our line item and update our estimate. If we need to add a line item from our database, so currently our estimate just has the acoustical ceiling line item that we added. If we go in, we select on wood flooring, for example, program is going to put us in a takeoff command just like before. So we'll go in, we'll do our takeoff. But since this line item wasn't already in our estimate from our template or from us adding it manually, well, the program's going to add that line item for us. So as we finish that, now we have 260 square feet of wood flooring. That line item has been added to our estimate. So if we select on a line item out of our database, the line item will be added into our estimate. We select on a line item from our template that was already in our estimate, it'll just update the quantity. As we're doing that takeoff, if we need to change from phase 1 to phase 2, or a building or a floor change, changing an estimate specific WBS property, everything about the line item from its description and its takeoff pattern will all stay the same. But as we look at that line item in our estimate, we'll have a wood flooring for both phase 1 and for phase 2. So that way, if we want to view the two phases separately or report on them separately, we can. You also have the ability to roll those back up into a singular line item if you choose to. As we're doing our takeoff, the type of takeoff in terms of area, length, and count will change based off the unit of measure of the line item that we have selected. So if we select on hollow metal doors, for example, now when we go in, instead of receiving an area, we'll receive a count. You also have full control. So if you want to change the color, pattern, or symbol of anything the program generates for you, you always have the ability to change that information for your counts. So now each time we click, the count of doors will go up by 1. And just like before, that line item has been added into our estimate since we selected on it out of our database. So far, we've done single line item takeoff. So we've taken off acoustical ceiling tile, we have taken off wood flooring. But using the line item method, if we wanted both in the same room, we'd most likely end up doing that takeoff twice or manually entering one of the quantities. As we think of being more efficient with our takeoff, having a consistent level of detail, assemblies are a great way to accomplish that. So as we look at our room finish assembly, it's going to give us an example of what assembly takeoff can look like. So an assembly to us, at its basics, is a group of line items with a series of questions asked about them. So if we were to go in for our last king suite, for example, so now when we do our takeoff, instead of instantly being assigned to one line item, area and perimeter will be populated. So we have area and perimeter. Those are things that an area takeoff natively knows about itself. Then instead of, if we wanted to run drywall, we can get the height. Now instead of being tied to one line item, we're asked a series of questions. So we can select the type of flooring that we'd like to run. We can select the type of base that we'd like to run and the type of ceiling and drywall that we'd like to run as well. So now instead of having to do that takeoff multiple times, manually enter quantities, all of our line items generated by takeoff, and we can answer those questions one time. So now as we add that to our estimate, that group of line items has been added to our estimate. Also, you'll have the ability when you're adding an assembly to make updates or changes. So we can go back in and change any of those flooring selections at any time that we chose to. So as we've looked at takeoff so far, we've been doing takeoff with a cost item or with a group of items, and then we have been doing the takeoff. So we've been doing the picks and clicks as we work through that takeoff. So what we're going to go over next is how you can interact with our integration with Togal and bring in Togal.AI for takeoff on architectural floor plans. So step one, we'll give our page a scale. So this is second page. We haven't performed any takeoff on this page. So what we're going to do is no takeoff on our page. Step one of doing Togal is we're going to hit the Togal button in the top right. We'll select page number 2. So Togal is going to show you the plans that you can run their automated takeoff on. So it has to be an architectural floor plan. It has to be a floor plan that we have given a scale to. So then we'll click OK. So as we think of the kind of what is Togal going to do for us? First thing that Togal will do for us is it's going to automate all the takeoff. So now instead of going through having to click on the corners of all of our rooms or count the doors or count the showers inside of our estimate, Togal is going to automate that process for us. One thing that will be different than the workflow that we just went through is since Togal is automating the takeoff won't be tied to line items. So what we'll do is we'll have the ability to select on a group of the takeoff that Togal returns and tie that to a line item or the groups of line items of our choosing. Also, as we work through those takeoffs, the program will keep track of what we have applied cost to and what we still need to apply cost to. So we will cover that as well. So way number 1, as we originally covered kind of on the takeoff we've done so far, we're going to select on a line item or a group of line items and then do takeoff. So we'll do the points and clicks, and that will instantly update the quantities in our estimate. Using Togal, Togal is going to perform the takeoff for us. We would review that takeoff, and then we're going to tie cost to it. So we're going to introduce this also in our next view as well, but our filter tree will control what we see. So this will work for both our estimate and our takeoff. So isMap is going to give us the ability to see what we have applied cost to. A component name is going to show us what takeoff Togal has returned. So as we go through, we're going to select on unmap, so everything from Togal hasn't had cost applied to it. We'll also bring out our takeoff summary. So as we look at the takeoff that Togal's returned, if we have our summarized visible components only on, we'll only see the takeoff on this page. If we turn that off, we can see all of our area takeoffs across all of our floor plans. So we'll go over and go a couple different ways we can use Togal for takeoff. So for example, if we start, we say, hey, we want to use all of our showers. So as we look at, how many showers, Total counted 23 showers. If we click here, it's going to select all of those count items that Togal counted for us. So then we can just go into our database. We'll select on line item for this example. We'll select on showers. And now when we click on that line item, we can say we want to bring over that count that Togal did for us. Say, hey, there are 23 showers that we want to apply cost to. Doing that moves our showers from unmapped, which means we hadn't applied cost to them, to our mapped folder so that we can see that we have applied cost to that line. So that's what we do if we want to select all of the material. If we're looking at our Togal areas and we have different unit breakouts, we have different areas that may be required different finishes, we don't have to select all of a particular material. So we can go in and select on, we'll say 4 rooms. Then down at the bottom, all of the parameters about those rooms will be updated in our QTO properties. We'll have the ability to go back into that same database. We can say we want to run carpet for these. We can select on the line item and then drag that quantity over. And now when we hit the add the estimate, two things will happen. In the unmapped section, there will still be a toggle area. So there will be all the toggle areas that we haven't selected that won't have cost applied to them. And then in our map section up at the top, it's going to create a new material for us. So it'll create a toggle area with the first letter of each word in our line of description, so we can see what we have applied cost to. So as we think of the different ways that we can do takeoff, we can do takeoff with cost items, whether it's a line item or an assembly from our database, and manually draw the takeoff. Also, we have our partnership with Togal, where Togal will perform the takeoff for you on those floor plans, and you'll be able to tie that takeoff to a line item or a group of line items, those assemblies of your choosing. So we're going to go back, review our estimate, we'll touch on fees, and then we will also go over reports as well. So as we head back to our estimate view, what we're going to go over in our estimate view is how we can review our estimates, or how we control what part of the estimate that we're seeing. We'll go over how we can control the columns that are available to us as well. So we're going to start by hiding our filter tree. We're going to come back to that here in just a moment. So what we're looking at right now is our estimate view. So we could all be in the same estimate. All of your internal users could be in the same estimate. They could have completely different estimate layouts and filter trees running, and it will show correctly to each user. So our goal for estimate layouts is two things. First, we want the estimate to present itself to you in a way that is comfortable. We have a way that you're used to reviewing your estimates today. We want you to be able to have a familiar feel. The second, we want to ensure that you have all of the columns that you need visible to you to work on or review a particular part of your estimate. So if we don't want to see a particular column, we can just drag that column off. We never lost that information. We're just choosing not to view it. Our created by column will always be the estimator who added an item to the estimate. The estimator column will be the last user to make changes. As we're going through, if we want to bring columns back, we have our column chooser to do that. As we bring back columns, WBS properties can either be columns, or they'll also have the unique ability. We can drag them up and put our estimates into more of a grouped view. So we can see our estimates in major folders, be able to expand the folders as we see fit. Our goal is that your template provides you with approximately 70–80% of those views, and will just be available to you for you to be able to switch through when you're working on your estimate. So as we think of our estimate layouts, those are the columns that we're seeing. Our filter tree will control the rows. So we currently have $95,000 in direct cost. If we were to click on just our finishes, we just see the cost of our finishes. Same thing as you work down to tiling. Then also, it will also update our takeoff. So we navigate back page where we did more takeoff. As we're looking at division 9, it shows all of our division 9 takeoff. We look at the things that we just applied flooring to, just those items will appear. Estimate layouts control how we see our estimate. Filter tree controls what part we see. Fees in your fee table, template driven as well. Our goal is during implementation, we would load in your standard fee table, have that ready to go for you each time. We'll touch on some major fee types. So we'll have iterative fees. So fee in our example, it's running off total. So it's iterative off the total of the estimate, fee on fee. We'll have a bond calculator where you can have as many steps as you need. Each step can have its own percentage. You can run a fee off of each of our 5 cost categories. So we support equipment, labor, material, other, sub. Each one has its own type. You can also insert subtotals at any time and run a fee off of the subtotal. And if you need to run a fee off just a particular part of the estimate, you can do that as well. So if we want to run 10% and just have that be off of division 9, we can select percent of custom and have our fee run off of just division 9. As we move to reports, 2 primary ways to report out of the program. Our first is our dashboard tab. So dashboards are our second Excel integration that will allow you to easily summarize data at a WBS property level. And you can switch between different WBS structures that are inside of your estimate and have the ability to easily filter to just see rows that have values. So we think of phase 1 and phase 2, they'll all be in the same column here. Our system breakdown will address that. So system breakdown will look up all the values for any area breakout that you tell it to. So here we can break out by phase 1 and phase 2 and easily shrink that down to just the columns and rows that have values. Also, the database that was available to Power BI is available to the user inside of the program as well. So if we want to compare back to a previous version, so if we're at CD, we want to compare back to DD, we can do that. Or we can compare completely different projects against one another. Just like the program looked up our area breakouts, it will look up our estimates for us. And then we can easily filter to just the rows that have changes. The second way of reporting will be from our reports. So there are 7 standard reports that come with the program. Reports will give you every line item of detail. So you'll have the ability to select from what we call grouping levels. That will be 4 levels of WBS property breakdown. And the same report can run off of any WBS structure. So as we look at grouping level 1, we could run that report by master format level 1 and 2, and the report will organize itself that way. Or we could use system, which was our phase breakout, then have all 3 levels of the new format if we needed to. So reports will allow us to have our line item detail, and dashboards will allow us to have a WBS property